The glowing numbers on my phone screen read 2:37 a.m. When I finally stopped running long enough to realize where I had ended up, somehow, my panicked flight through the empty streets had brought me to the dark alley behind Frank's 24-hour convenience, the place where I spent 5 nights a week scanning groceries and restocking shelves for minimum wage.
He is very dangerous. He hit me very hard.
I should not have come here, should not have led Marcus anywhere near the one place that still felt like mine. But at 2:37 inches the morning, with nowhere else to go and no one else who would believe me, this filthy alley behind dumpsters and scattered trash felt like the only place in the world where I could catch my breath. My name is Linda Riley, and 6 hours ago, I had a completely different future. I was a two-year-old convenience store cashier working graveyard shifts, living in a cramped apartment with my stepfather Marcus, counting every dollar I could hide away in a coffee can buried at the back of my closet. I had a plan. I had hope. I had exactly $2,847. Saved enough, I thought, for first month's rent and deposit on my own place. Enough to finally escape. 6 hours ago, I believed I was 2 months away from freedom. Now, crumpled against the cold brick wall in this dark alley, my jaw throbbing where Marcus's fist had connected, my ribs screaming with every shallow breath, blood from my split lip staining the collar of my work uniform, I understood that the escape I had been planning for 8 years had just been destroyed in the time it took Marcus to overturn my mattress and find my hiding place. The first blow had come when I tried to stop him from taking the money.
So you think you can run away from me, huh?
Please.
Marcus and I had been arguing about rent, something that happened at least twice a month since my mother died and left me alone with him. He had been drinking, going through my room looking for money you're hiding from me, and I had foolishly, desperately tried to grab the coffee can from his hands. I had said, "That's mine. You can't have it." Except Marcus believed he could have anything he wanted. His backhand had sent me sprawling into the kitchen table, scattering the bills across the floor like confetti. The shock had been almost worse than the pain. Marcus hit me regularly, had been hitting me since I was 14, but this was different. This time, I had dared to resist. This time, I had tried to protect the one thing that mattered, and Marcus had made sure I understood what happened to people who defied him. What followed was the worst beating I had ever endured. More blows, kicks when I tried to curl into a protective ball, his voice never loving, but at least sometimes indifferent, now spewing rage as he told me exactly what he thought of me, my dead mother, my pathetic dreams of leaving. He had scattered my savings across the apartment, torn the bills, set some on fire in the kitchen sink while I watched through tears and blood. 8 years of hope, burning. The attack had felt endless, though it probably lasted less than 10 minutes. When he finally stopped, breathing hard and staring at the destruction with satisfaction, he had delivered his final threat. "You try to leave again, I'll finish what I started tonight. You understand me, Linda? You belong here." Then he had thrown me out into the hallway and locked the door. I should have gone to the hospital, should have called the police, should have done any number of logical, rational things. But I was not thinking logically. I was operating on pure survival instinct, 8 years of practiced silence, and the bone-deep knowledge that no one had ever believed me before. Why would they start now? And that instinct had driven me here, to the alley behind Frank's convenience, because it was the only place I could reach on foot at 2:37 a.m., the only place where the security lights created small pools of illumination in the darkness. The only place that felt even remotely like neutral territory. Frank knew me. Frank had hired me 3 years ago, despite my lack of experience, had given me the graveyard shifts that paid an extra $1 per hour, had never asked why I sometimes came to work with bruises. I tried to hide under makeup. Frank's store stayed open all night, and all night meant safety. It meant witnesses. It meant Marcus could not drag me back into that apartment without someone seeing. Except Frank's was closed now, the main lights off, only the security system glowing. And I was alone in the alley, collapsed against the dumpster, everything I had worked for destroyed, with nowhere left to run. I did not know that Vincenzo Torre Enterprises held their late-night meetings in the office building 2 blocks away. I did not know that Adriano Zanetti, the man they called the Destroyer, had business in this neighborhood tonight. I did not know that his habit of stopping at Frank's for cigarettes after midnight meetings would lead him through this alley at exactly 2:39 a.m. All I knew was that I was broken, bleeding, and out of options. I knew what Adriano Zanetti was. Everyone in the city did, even if most people were smart enough not to say his name out loud. The Destroyer was not just a nickname, it was a warning, a reputation built on 30 years of ruthless control over the city's underground. He was not a man you wanted to meet, especially not in a dark alley at 2:37 inches the morning. The stories about him ranged from whispered rumors to documented fact. He had inherited his father's empire at 22 after a hostile takeover that left 15 rivals dead in a single night. He controlled everything from the docks to the casinos, from protection rackets to high-level political connections. He was known for his cold efficiency, his absolute intolerance for betrayal, and his particular brutality toward anyone who harmed the vulnerable. That last part was the strangest element of his reputation. The Destroyer was a monster in 1,000 ways, but apparently he had rules. And one of those rules, according to the whispers, was that predators who operated in his territory answered to him personally. I had seen him exactly once in my life, 2 years ago when he had come into Frank's at 3 a.m. to buy cigarettes and bottled water. I had been working the register, exhausted and barely paying attention until Frank had suddenly appeared from the back room, his face carefully neutral but his movements stiff with tension. Adriano Zanetti had been polite in the way dangerous people are polite, economical with words, exact with cash, his dark eyes taking in everything, without seeming to look at anything directly. He was tall, perhaps 6'3", with dark hair, a strong jaw, and features that would have been handsome if not for the hardness in his expression. He dressed in expensive dark suits, moved with the kind of controlled grace that suggested violence was always an option, and radiated the kind of power that made you instinctively want to fade into the background. He had paid, taken his items, and left without incident. But I remembered thinking that he looked exactly like what he was, someone you did not cross, someone who had seen and done things that would break normal people, someone who carried death in his wake like a shadow. And now, at 2:37 a.m., broken and bleeding in a dark alley, I was about to meet him again. I did not hear his footsteps. I did not see him enter the alley. The first indication I had that I was no longer alone was a voice low, controlled, and carrying the kind of authority that made my survival instincts scream danger.
Who did this to you?
I looked up through my one good eye and saw Adriano, the Destroyer, Zanetti standing 3 feet away, a pack of cigarettes in one hand, his dark eyes locked on my face with an intensity that made me want to disappear. He was not asking out of kindness or concern. He was asking because someone had left evidence of violence in his territory, and he wanted to know who had been stupid enough to create this mess. This was the moment everything changed, though I did not know it yet. This was 2:37 a.m., and this was the beginning of a story I never could have imagined. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more compelling content. Now, let's dive into the story. I should have lied. Every survival instinct I had developed over 8 years of living with Marcus screamed at me to deflect, to minimize, to protect the secret that had kept me alive. But when Adriano Zanetti asked, "Who did this to you?" in that low, commanding voice that expected immediate truth, something inside me cracked. "It's nothing," I whispered, the words automatic, practiced. "I fell." His eyes narrowed. He crouched down to my level, close enough that I could see the sharp intelligence behind his dark gaze, and said quietly, "I have seen what falling looks like. This is not it. Someone beat you, broke your ribs, and left you here to bleed. I will ask one more time, who did this?" The gentleness in his tone undid me more than the authority. I had spent 8 years being told my pain did not matter, that I deserved every blow, that speaking up would only make things worse. But this man, this dangerous, terrifying man, was looking at me like my answer actually mattered. "My stepfather," I heard myself say, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "Marcus Riley. He found my savings tonight, the money I was hiding to leave, and I tried to stop him from taking it. And my voice broke. He said if I try to leave again, he'll finish what he started tonight." Something changed in Adriano's expression. The careful control slipped for just a moment, replaced by something that looked like old grief and fresh fury combined. His jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists, and when he spoke again, his voice was harder than steel. "How long?" "Since I was 14, after my mother died. 8 years. He said it like a curse. 8 years, and no one stopped him. I shook my head, shame burning through me. I never told anyone. Who would believe me? He's respected in the neighborhood, has a business, goes to church. I'm just... "You are someone who survived 8 years with a monster?" Adriano interrupted, his voice cutting through my self-deprecation like a blade. "That requires more strength than most people possess in their entire lives." He stood abruptly, pulling out his phone. I watched, confused and terrified, as he made a call. "Giovanni, Bring the car to the alley behind Frank's convenience. Now. He paused, listening. No. Emergency. 5 minutes. Then he looked down at me, and the fury in his expression transformed into something that felt like a promise. Marcus Riley will never touch you again. You have my word, and my word is law in this city. I wanted to ask what he meant, wanted to understand what was happening, but exhaustion and pain were pulling me under. The last thing I remembered before darkness took over was Adriano's voice, low and certain. You're safe now, Linda Riley. I've got you. I woke in the back of a car that cost more than I would earn in 5 years, my head resting against leather so soft it felt like a crime to bleed on it. Giovanni Adriano's driver, a man built like a brick wall, with surprisingly gentle hands, had carried me from the alley, while Adriano made phone calls in rapid Italian, his voice cold and precise in ways that made me grateful. I could not understand every word. The drive lasted 30 minutes, taking us away from the city's heart and into rolling hills where estates hid behind tall gates and ancient trees. When we finally stopped, I glimpsed a massive stone mansion lit by security lights before Giovanni carried me inside and up a grand staircase that belonged in a museum, not a home. Dr. Isabella Russo was already waiting in what appeared to be a guest bedroom larger than my entire apartment. She was perhaps 50, elegant and efficient, with silver-streaked dark hair and the kind of clinical detachment that made me feel like just another body on her examination table, which, I supposed, I was. No hospitals, Adriano said from the doorway. No police, no trail. Dr. Russo nodded without surprise, already assessing my injuries with practiced hands. 3 broken ribs, severe concussion, defensive bruising on her forearms, facial contusions, possible internal bleeding. She needs imaging. I have portable equipment in the medical suite. Use it. I tried to focus on their conversation, tried to understand what was happening, but pain and confusion made everything feel distant and unreal. This man, this dangerous, terrifying man, had brought me to his home, had called his personal doctor, was giving orders about my care like I mattered, like I was worth protecting. Why? I managed to whisper when Dr. Russo stepped away to prepare medications. Adriano moved closer, his expression unreadable. Because Marcus Riley hurt someone under my protection, and that requires consequences. I'm not under your protection. I'm just a cashier at Frank's. You are now. His tone left no room for argument. As of 2:37 this morning, you became my responsibility. That means you stay here until you are healed and safe. That means Marcus learns what happens to men who beat defenseless women in my city. Terror and relief warred inside me. The city's most dangerous man had just claimed me as his responsibility, and I did not know if that meant salvation or a different kind of cage. But when Dr. Russo returned with pain medication, and Adriano quietly excused himself, promising that guards would be stationed outside my door, I realized something profound. For the first time in 8 years, I was not afraid to fall asleep. The bed was enormous, the sheets impossibly soft, and through the partially open door I could see 2 men with guns standing watch in the hallway. I should have been terrified. Instead, as the medication pulled me under, I felt something I had almost forgotten existed: safety. 3 days passed in a blur of pain medication, medical examinations, and the strange luxury of sleeping without fear. Dr. Russo visited twice daily, monitoring my healing ribs and concussion with the same clinical efficiency she had shown that first night. The staff, housekeepers, guards. Giovanni moved through the estate like ghosts, providing everything I needed while maintaining a respectful distance that made me feel more like a guest than a prisoner. But the guilt was suffocating me. On the 3rd evening, when I could finally walk without gasping, I found my way to the estate's terrace overlooking manicured gardens and distant city lights. The sunset painted everything gold and purple, and for a moment I could almost pretend I belonged in a place this beautiful. Almost. You should be resting. Adriano's voice came from behind me, not startling but grounding. I did not turn around. I need to leave. I'm causing you trouble, and Marcus will be looking for me, and I don't want. What you want, he interrupted, moving to stand beside me at the railing, is to apologize for existing, to make yourself smaller, to convince yourself that you deserved what happened. The accuracy of his observation made tears spring to my eyes. You don't understand. Marcus has connections. He'll find out I'm here, and then you'll be in danger because of me. And I can't. Stop. His voice was firm but not unkind. Listen to me carefully, Linda. You did not cause this. Monsters do not need reasons, they need victims. Marcus did not beat you because you talked back or tried to leave or hid money. He beat you because he could, because hurting you made him feel powerful, because he is a coward who preys on those weaker than himself. But if I had just There is no if I had just. There is only what he chose to do. Adriano turned to face me fully, his dark eyes intense. You survived, Linda. For 8 years, you survived a monster in your own home. That makes you stronger than you know. And as someone under my protection, you are untouchable now. Marcus Riley does not have connections that frighten me. No one does. I wiped at my tears, feeling foolish and exposed. I don't know how to be here, how to accept help, how to believe this is real. Then learn. His expression softened slightly. You will stay until you are healed and safe. You will stop apologizing for breathing. And you will understand that your normal life was a cage, Linda. This, he gestured to the estate, to the freedom it represented, is what safety looks like, even if it comes from someone like me. For the first time since that alley, I felt something shift inside me. Not hope, exactly, but the distant possibility of it. Thank you, I whispered. Adriano nodded once, then said quietly, You are not going back to that life. I promise you. And somehow, standing on that terrace with a criminal who had claimed my protection, I believed him. 1 week after Adriano found me in that alley, I finally worked up the courage to ask the question that had been consuming me. I found him in his study, surrounded by mahogany furniture and walls lined with leather-bound books, reviewing documents that probably detailed operations I was better off not knowing about. What happened to Marcus? The words came out smaller than I intended. Adriano looked up, his expression unreadable. He set down his pen with deliberate care, then gestured for me to sit. Are you certain you want to know? I nodded, my heart hammering. Part of me needed to know Marcus was really gone, that the threat was neutralized. Another part feared what Adriano's justice might look like. Marcus Riley's construction company collapsed overnight, permits revoked, contracts terminated, investors withdrawing. His bank accounts were emptied payment for damages owed to various parties. His reputation in the neighborhood is destroyed. People know what he did to you, and they know he fled like the coward he is. Fled? I whispered. Adriano pulled up something on his laptop, turning the screen toward me. Security footage showed Marcus disheveled, terrified, begging being escorted to the city limits by 2 large men I did not recognize. He was given a choice: leave permanently and never speak your name again, or face consequences that would be far less merciful. He chose wisely. I watched the footage, seeing Marcus reduced to the frightened, powerless thing he had always made me feel like. I waited for guilt, for some remnant of familial obligation to surface. Instead, I felt relief so profound it made me dizzy. He's really gone? He will never return. I have people monitoring. If he so much as approaches the city limits, I will know within minutes, and his education will continue. Adriano's voice was cold, absolute. You are safe, Linda. Permanently. I stared at the screen, watching Marcus stumble away from the only city he had ever known, and realized something important. Adriano's justice operated outside the law, beyond courts and lawyers and trials that would have required me to prove the unprovable. His justice was immediate, effective, and permanent. Thank you, I said quietly. I know this isn't how normal people handle things, but normal people, Adriano interrupted gently, would have left you to suffer for 8 more years while the system debated whether you deserved protection. I am not a normal person, Linda, and sometimes that is exactly what the situation requires. He closed the laptop, and with it, the chapter of my life that had been Marcus Riley. I walked out of that study feeling lighter than I had in years, finally understanding that some endings do not require forgiveness, only permanence. The nightmares came in waves. Some nights I slept peacefully, wrapped in expensive sheets with guards outside my door. Other nights, I woke screaming, convinced Marcus had found me, that the safety was just another cruel dream. 3 weeks into my stay, a particularly violent nightmare sent me stumbling onto the estate's main balcony at 3 a.m., gasping for air and trembling. I had not expected to find Adriano already there, staring out at the dark gardens with a glass of whiskey in his hand and the weight of the world in his posture. I'm sorry, I said automatically. I didn't mean to disturb you. You did not. He glanced at me, and in the moonlight I saw something in his expression I had never seen before. Vulnerability. I do not sleep well either. I moved to the railing beside him, keeping a respectful distance. Nightmares, memories, sometimes they are the same thing. He took a slow sip of his drink. You asked me once why I helped you. I did not give you the complete answer. I waited, sensing this was something he needed to share on his own terms. I had a younger sister, Lucia. His voice was careful, controlled, like he was handling something fragile. She was 7 years younger than me, beautiful, kind, everything good in a world that was mostly darkness. Our father was, He paused, searching for words. He was what Marcus was to you. Brutal. Controlling. He saw weakness as something to be destroyed. My breath caught. Adriano. I was building my power, planning to take over the family business and eliminate our father before he could hurt her anymore. I had a timeline, resources, loyal people. I just needed 6 more months. His hand tightened on the glass. Lucia did not have 6 months. She took her own life when I was 20 and she was 13. Left a note saying she could not wait for rescue anymore, that the pain was too much. Tears streamed down my face. I'm so sorry. I became the destroyer because I failed her. I made sure that no one in my territory would ever suffer what she suffered. I have spent 15 years ensuring that predators like our father, like Marcus, understand there are consequences. He finally looked at me directly. When I found you in that alley, bleeding and broken, I saw Lucia, and when you whispered that you did not want to die, I was given something I was never given with her, the chance to actually save someone. I reached out hesitantly, placing my hand over his on the railing. She would be proud of who you became. She would hate the monster I had to become to protect others. His voice was raw. But perhaps she would understand why. We stood there in the darkness, 2 people bound by the scars that never fully heal. And I realized that Adriano had not just saved me from Marcus. He had saved himself from 15 years of failure, and I had given him the chance to be the protector he had always needed to be. 2 months into my stay at the estate, my physical wounds had healed, but my understanding of Adriano Zanetti remained complicated. I watched him conduct business with cold efficiency, saw his men defer to him with genuine fear, heard whispered stories from the staff about his ruthlessness. The world knew him as the Destroyer, and that reputation was not unearned. One evening, I found him in his study and asked the question that had been building since that conversation on the balcony. Should I be afraid of you? He looked up from his paperwork, his dark eyes assessing. That is an honest question. It deserves an honest answer. He stood, walking to a secure cabinet and retrieving a tablet. Come with me. He led me to a private room I had never entered, equipped with monitors and security equipment. Sitting me down, he pulled up files, surveillance footage, transcripts, detailed reports of operations that painted a picture of exactly who Adriano Zanetti was. I watched him dismantle a rival trafficking operation with calculated brutality, read transcripts of orders he had given that resulted in people disappearing, saw the full scope of his empire, the violence, the control, the absolute power he wielded over the city's underworld. This is who I am, Linda. His voice was steady, unflinching. I am the monster they say I am. I have killed. I have destroyed lives. I have built an empire on fear and blood, because that is the only language this world understands. I should have been terrified, should have run. But instead, I turned to him and asked, have you ever hurt someone who did not deserve it? He considered this carefully. I have hurt many people, but I have never hurt someone innocent. Every person I have destroyed was a predator, a traitor, or a threat to those under my protection. I do not apologize for what I am, but I have rules. I looked back at the screens showing his brutality, then at the man who had found me broken in an alley and given me safety when no one else would. You're a monster to monsters, I said slowly. But you're my monster, my shield. Something shifted in his expression, surprise, perhaps, or relief. You understand what that means? What it means to accept protection from someone like me. It means I'm exactly where I need to be. I stood, meeting his gaze directly. The law did nothing for me for 8 years. The system did nothing. Normal, good people did nothing. You, the criminal, the destroyer, the monster, you did everything. So yes, I should probably be afraid of you. But the only thing I'm afraid of is losing this safety. Adriano studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then you will never lose it. You have my word. I left that room understanding something profound. Sometimes the monsters we need are the ones who destroy other monsters. And sometimes, unconventional safety is the only real safety there is. 6 months after Adriano found me in that alley, I started volunteering at Hope Haven Youth Shelter 3 days a week. Dr. Russo had cleared me for regular activity, and sitting in luxury while contributing nothing felt like a different kind of cage. Adriano assigned 2 discreet guards, non-negotiable, he said firmly, and I found myself working with at-risk teenagers who reminded me painfully of my younger self. That was when I met Elena. She was 16, thin as paper, with defensive wounds on her arms, and the same haunted look I recognized from my own mirror. She sat in the corner during group activities, speaking to no one, trusting nothing. I saw myself at 14, newly trapped with Marcus, learning that silence was survival. I approached her slowly, carefully. I'm Linda. You don't have to talk, but I'm here if you need anything. She looked up, and I saw the calculation in her eyes measuring threat, evaluating sincerity, deciding if I was safe. They all say that, she whispered. Then they send you back. My heart broke. Back where? Home. Where he is. Her voice cracked. My father. She could not finish, but she did not need to. I knew. I sat beside her, not touching, just present. I had a stepfather who hurt me for 8 years. I understand what it's like when home is the most dangerous place in the world. Elena stared at me, tears streaming. How did you get out? Someone who shouldn't have cared did. I thought of Adriano, of that alley, of the unlikely salvation that came from the city's most dangerous man, but it shouldn't have taken that long. It shouldn't require miracles or luck or powerful protectors. There should be a place where people like us can go, where we're believed and protected and given real options. The idea crystallized in that moment, seeing Elena's desperate hope and knowing thousands more just like her had nowhere to turn. I spent the next 2 weeks creating a detailed proposal, researching successful models, outlining everything I wished had existed when I needed it. The Second Chance Community Center would offer emergency housing, legal advocacy, job training, counseling, and most importantly, protection for at-risk youth escaping abuse. It would fill the gaps that had kept me trapped: economic dependence, lack of resources, isolation, and fear. I presented the proposal to Adriano in his study one evening, my hands shaking. I know this is asking a lot, and I understand if it's not possible, but I've thought about this carefully and, how much do you need? He had been reading the proposal as I babbled, his expression thoughtful. I blinked. What? How much do you need to make this happen? Building, staff, operations, security. He looked up. You've found your purpose, Linda. I told you once that your strength could help others. This is how. I'll give you the means. You'll fund it? Completely. I'll purchase a building downtown, provide security, ensure no one interferes with your work. He smiled slightly. Consider it an investment in ensuring fewer people end up where you were. 3 months later, the Second Chance Community Center opened its doors. Elena was our first resident, and standing in that lobby, watching young people find the safety I had once desperately needed, I understood that my transformation was complete, from victim to survivor to advocate. 18 months after finding me at 2:37 a.m., Adriano asked me to have dinner with him at the estate, not in the formal dining room where we occasionally ate with staff present, but on the private terrace where he had once convinced me I was not to blame for Marcus's violence. The Second Chance Center was thriving, serving 43 residents and providing services to hundreds more. I had found purpose in my pain, transforming trauma into tangible help. But something else had been building between Adriano and me, something neither of us had named but both of us felt. You have done something remarkable, Adriano said after dinner, looking out at the gardens. The center has saved lives, changed futures. You took your worst experience and created hope from it. I couldn't have done it without you. I moved to stand beside him at the railing. You gave me everything: safety, resources, belief that I was worth saving. Linda. He turned to face me, his expression vulnerable in ways I had only seen once before, on that balcony at 3 a.m. When I found you in that alley, I saw Lucia. I saw my failure, my greatest regret, bleeding out among the trash. And when you whispered that you did not want to die, I was given something I never had with her, the chance to actually save someone. You told me this, I said softly, but I did not tell you what happened after. His voice was rough with emotion. You did not just survive, Linda. You let me protect you. You trusted me when you had no reason to trust anyone. You healed, and then you took that healing and built something that saves others. You gave me redemption for 15 years of failure. My breath caught. Adriano, I love you. The words were simple, absolute. I have loved you since you stopped apologizing for breathing, since you called me your monster and meant it as acceptance rather than fear, since you decided that safety from a criminal was worth more than judgment from the righteous. He took my hands gently. I am not a good man, Linda, but I am a better man because of you. Tears streamed down my face, 18 months of unnamed emotion finally surfacing. You gave me more than safety. You gave me myself back. You taught me that I was worth protecting, worth believing, worth fighting for. And somewhere between the estate and the center and all the conversations in between, I fell in love with you too. He pulled me close, and I wrapped my arms around him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against mine. The monster and the survivor, finding love in the wreckage of their broken pasts. "We are an unlikely pair," he murmured against my hair. I smiled through my tears. The best things usually are. That night, standing under the stars on the terrace where he had once promised I would stop apologizing for existing, Adriano Zanetti asked me to marry him. And I, who had once believed I would never be free, said yes to the man who had taught me that freedom comes in unexpected forms. We married 6 months later in a private ceremony at the estate, with only Giovanni, Dr. Russo, the center's staff, and a few of Adriano's most trusted people present. I wore a simple white dress, and Adriano wore a dark suit, and when we exchanged vows on that same terrace, where so much of our relationship had unfolded, I felt the weight of impossible survival transform into improbable joy. "You found me at my most broken," I said, my voice steady despite tears, "and saw someone worth saving. You gave me safety, belief, and purpose. You taught me that monsters are not defined by their methods but by who they protect and who they destroy. I love you, Adriano Zanetti, my monster, my shield, my home." Adriano's voice was rough with emotion. "You took my protection and built purpose from pain. You showed me that redemption is not about erasing the past, but about ensuring the future is different. You gave me the one thing I thought I had lost forever, the chance to save someone who needed saving. I love you, Linda Riley, my strength, my purpose, my second chance." 5 years later, we had 2 children, Sophia, age 3, and Marcus, 18 months old, named not after my stepfather but after my mother, whose middle name was Marcella. The Second Chance Community Center had expanded to 3 locations, serving hundreds of at-risk youth annually, with Elena now working as our outreach coordinator, having earned her social work degree. On a Tuesday evening, I taught a self-defense class at the original center, while Adriano watched from the doorway, Sophia on his hip and Marcus toddling at his feet. The class was full of teenage girls learning to fight back, learning that their survival mattered, learning that escape was possible. As I demonstrated a defensive move, I caught Adriano's eye. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile he reserved only for private moments, and I smiled back, remembering that alley, that impossible night, the precise moment at 2:37 a.m., when everything changed. I had been broken, bleeding, and out of options, convinced I would die in that dark alley behind Frank's convenience. Instead, I had been found by the city's most dangerous man, who had taught me that safety does not always come from expected places, that love can grow from the strangest soil, and that purpose can be built from the ruins of trauma. After class, as students filed out chattering about their progress, Adriano approached with our children. Sophia demanded to be picked up, and I lifted her, breathing in her baby shampoo scent, and marveling at the impossible journey that had led to this moment. "Happy?" Adriano asked quietly. I looked at him, this complicated, dangerous, beautiful man who had saved my life and then given me reasons to live it, and then at our children, at the center that transformed pain into hope, at the life we had built from broken foundations. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," I said truthfully, because that was the thing about finding salvation at 2:37 a.m., in a dark alley. When you survive the unsurvivable, when you build purpose from pain, when you find love in unlikely places, you learn that even the darkest nights can lead to dawn. And sometimes, the monsters who save you become the family you choose, the safety you deserve, and the love that redeems all the broken pieces into something whole. We walked out of the center together, our children between us, heading home to the estate that had once been my refuge and was now my sanctuary. Behind us, the Second Chance Community Center's lights glowed warm against the evening darkness, a beacon for everyone still trapped in their own alleys, still waiting for 2:37 a.m., still hoping for their own impossible salvation. The story that began with weeping in a dark alley had become a story of purpose, protection, and the kind of love that only broken people who heal together can understand. And it all started because Adriano, the destroyer, Zanetti, stopped for cigarettes at exactly the right time, heard crying in exactly the right place, and chose to ask exactly the right question. Who did this to you? Sometimes, that is all it takes to change everything. If Linda and Adriano's story touched your heart, you need to subscribe right now. The story appearing on your screen? It's even more emotional than what you just experienced. Seriously, it will wreck you in the best way possible. Click it, watch it, and hit subscribe so you never miss a story that could change everything. See you in the next one.